Philadelphia has it.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to DSM Pregame Live, streamed to you here exclusively on DSM Media's YouTube channel. First and foremost, guys, if you're new to the channel, make sure to check us out on Twitter first at DSM_media. Hit that follow button. We greatly appreciate it. And while you're over on the channel, make sure to check out the link tree. It's in our bio. It'll take you to every social media platform we are available on. You can find myself on Twitter at DylanJD98. My co-host to my right, Scotty. You can find him as well at Scotty Drown. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel, turn on notifications, and let's get right into it. Another 2-for-1 special, my man. I don't know what the schedule makers we're thinking with these two big Bucks and Celtics games here. Obviously, no idea that this was going to run into each other and conflict, but we have the Phillies up in the Bronx to take on the Yankees for game 2 of this 3-game series. And we have the Sixers back in South Philly at home to take on the Boston Celtics with 4 games remaining in the season. But before we get into that Sixers matchup tonight, my man, let's start with the Philadelphia Phillies as they are the first game up on the slate at 7 o'clock. 0-4 as they fall to the New York Yankees last night. Again, 8-1 with that final score. They are the only winless team left in the major leagues. Worst run differential, giving up the most runs. It has not been a lot of fun, Scotty. And obviously, I did a recap with Parcero earlier. I want to get your thoughts on it, but I want to throw this to you, man. This team does not look like they're having fun. They don't look like a team ready or prepared to play meaningful competitive baseball with all the sloppy base running and the errors combined with bad pitching and too many empty innings, leaving so many guys in scoring position. When we last saw this team in late October, early November, they were fun. They look like they were having fun. And right now they look tense, man. They don't look like they have a ton of energy. They don't look like they're having, any fun, to be honest with you. You see it with Kyle Schwarber's frustration each and every time he gets put down in the batter's box. He's the main leader right now on this team. Yeah. What are your thoughts here, man? 0-4.
Yeah, I think you kind of hinted towards it right there. And I think Kyle Schwarber, just the funk that he's in, right? And there's been big moments. And mind you, I haven't watched all of every single game so far, right? Because things have gotten out of hand in a few of them. But there's just been big spots where Kyle Schwarber has not been able to come through for us. And that being your guy at the top, your one leader that you still have there, it starts with him, right? If he could just get a big hit for this team, I think it could, drive some momentum in their favor. It's just, and it's not just Kyle Schwarber. I don't want to just throw all the blame. You can't blame an 0-4 start on one guy. He's just the leader, but this goes for all the guys. There's just been big moments throughout each of these 4 games where you can turn the tide with just a big play from one of your bats, and it's not happening. And that doesn't go to say that it's all on the bats or it's all on the outfield, on the defense, and the pitching. That's not the case. The problem right now is that there's problems everywhere.
Yeah, it's a combination of both.
That's the most concerning part, right? And to your point, it looks like they're not having fun. It looks like there's way too much pressure on their shoulders right now, and we're 4 games in. So, you need to find some way to take the cap off and let some of that pressure out. And the only way to do that right now is by getting a W. So
that's a great point.
They look to turn the tide here.
They look like a team that knows they have high expectations and they're just trying too hard, too much, too tense to get that first win of the season. I promise you, when they do crack into this win column, you will see a different Phillies team from here on out. But I loved your point about Kyle Schwarber, man, because they are desperate for something to go their way. And sometimes all it takes is a big home run or a timely hit in a big moment to change the momentum and change the energy in the dugout. And he's kind of the guy you're looking at because, to be honest, Trey's been great. Bo's been great. Other guys have stepped up. You're without Bryce. You're without Reese. You can't afford a slow Kyle Schwarber start. And I understand he starts most years like this. But you really can't afford that right now, man. The last thing I'll say here before we get into our pitching matchup and our lineup card here tonight is kind of a key for tonight, right? When you're looking at basically a bullpen game with Matt Strahm on the mound, you need to stop playing from behind, Scotty.
Yeah.
He's blowing a 5-0 lead against Jacob deGrom and the Texas Rangers on opening day. The Phillies have been down and down early playing from behind.
Yeah.
They were down 2-0 in the top of the second in game 2. They were down 1-0 in the top of the third in game 3. And then they were down 2-0 heading into the top of the second last night against the Yankees. You're not just down. You're down after the first half inning for the opponent. It's a mindset right now that they're constantly playing from behind and trying to get over this hump. And it's making life so difficult for them, man. The goal now to me, when you start like 0-4, because again, I'm nowhere near the panic button. Now, if they get swept, there's going to be, some uneasiness creeping in. But if they lost 4 straight in June or July, there wouldn't be as much worry about it or as much talk or concern about it as it is with the opening day. To me, when you start like this, just like it was for the Sixers when they started 0-3 to start this NBA season, you have to try to get back to 500 ball now. That's the goal, right? So throughout this next week or so of games, a little less than a week, right? You play the Yankees 2 more times today and tomorrow. You get a day off, and then you head home for the Reds, and then you get a day off, right?
Yeah.
Getting back to 6-6, right? 7-7, somewhere in that ballpark, however you do it. Then you can go from there. Now the season starts. And you can kind of work from there. The Mets are 3-2. The Braves are 3-1. It's not like you're 18 games behind these opponents, right, man?
So exactly. That's
the
thing.
It needs to start soon.
You can't add more pressure, right? Like you gotta, you gotta just relax and play baseball, and that's what they got to get back to doing. You hope that they can get one of these 2 left in the Bronx up against the Yankees, and then hopefully get back and get their feet on the ground in Philly and get it going with the fans behind them, because I think that's going to be a huge part of getting them back on the right track is getting back home to Philly and getting that first home opener done. But yeah, I'm with you, man. They got to stop sinking themselves into these holes early, like you said. The last 3 games they've done it. Because once again, it just adds more pressure into each and every moment. When you get down 2-0 going into the 4th inning, now when you have Trey Turner on base and you need a hit from Kyle Schwarber to drive in some runs, that pressure's there even more because you need them at that point when you're down 2-0. So to your point, these are all the things that are driving them into the ground, right? The bad base running from Marsh last night, the errors in the outfield. That's how you lose baseball games.
Yep.
So,
that's how the wheels start to fall off, man.
Exactly. It can't happen.
Let's look at this pitching matchup tonight, right? We have Matt Strahm on the mound, who hopefully won't be in a starting role much longer once Ranger Suarez can come back, hopefully within a week or so time. Matt Strahm is obviously a much better long reliever, mid reliever, lefty arm out of the bullpen for this roster. But he has had some time to be a starter in the past. It has not gone extremely well. Last year, though, I believe he was a sub 4 or right around a 4 ERA. His opponent on the bump tonight for the Yankees, Domingo Germán, gets the start. He is a career 4.37 ERA righty. Last year, one of his better years, he was a sub 4 as well last year for the Yanks. Only one guy in the starting lineup tonight, being Nick Castellanos, has faced Germán 5 times. Other than that, a bunch of guys have not seen him. A couple of guys have seen him 2 or 3 times. In those 2 or 3 at-bats, however, there's been some success, right? Trey's 2 for 3. Someone else is 2 for 3. Someone's 1 for 3. So there's been some success in the minimal work that has been against Domingo Germán tonight, man. But I got to be honest with you. I don't love that Strahm gets a start tonight because the last time we did see him as a starter, I want to say in San Diego or Boston, it was not pretty. But with that said, the matchup works out in the Phillies' favor. If there's a starter on this Yankees rotation you want your number 5 against tonight when you need a win, it is Domingo Germán. Tomorrow we get Cole during the day, Garrett Cole that is, but you get Aaron Nola hopefully in a bounce back spot. So the pitching matchup has kind of worked out in the Phillies' favor for this one. How are you feeling about Matt Strahm tonight? I gotta admit, I'm a little nervous.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I went into the Bailey Falter start with a little bit of confidence.
Yeah.
And we were
And
a
he
little
delivered.
questionable there. Yeah, hey, he did all right in that game, and I know we're going into this game. I believe Strom's on a 60 pitch
Yeah,
limit. Is
60,
that
65 they announced, something
60,
like that.
65? So, um, I hope he can give us a few innings with that amount
Yeah.
of pitches, right? Because otherwise this could go really bad once you're digging into that bullpen. We've seen what it looks like so far. And with the Yankees, we already know what they're bringing in their lineup. So, as much as he can give you tonight, I'm with you. I'm nervous. I don't know how long he's really going to get you in this game. And he's going against a powerhouse lineup, right? But I'm really looking from the Phillies side of things. Like you said, the matchup, he had a better season last year, but he's still one of the lesser caliber pitchers on that Yankees lineup of pitching.
Right.
So you got to take advantage of that tonight, and I think that's the bigger thing here. I think the bats need to come alive. They need to give us something. You look in the last game, there was one run scored. I
Yep.
believe the game before that was 2
One
to
run.
1. The game before that, 3 runs, so it was a 16-3 loss. So regardless of what the other team is scoring right now, mind you, 16-8 is not great, but you have to score more and you have to get these
Absolutely.
bats active. And I'm looking to Schwartz. I'm looking for him to get activated tonight. Give us something, right? The Yankee Stadium, that's supposed to be more of a favorable stadium to go
Give us
yard
free
in.
beer.
Right. So that's even more of a reason for Schwartz to give us something tonight. As you mentioned, Turner, Bohm, they've given us something all year, basically. Castellanos has been pretty good. Obviously, JT's getting the night off tonight. So I think that's even more of a reason why
Yeah.
Schwartz needs to step up with JT out of the
Absolutely.
lineup.
100%. Now you have a lineup tonight when you look back on that postseason run that does not include JT Realmuto, Rhys Hoskins,
Yep.
or Bryce Harper.
Yeah.
You are handicapped right now. You are limited if you are this Phillies lineup, right? So you need that guy, being Kyle Schwarber, to step up tonight. You mentioned that short porch out in right field, 100%. The free beer. Yards Brewing has announced that they will be giving out a free beer after every Schwarbomb this year.
Wow.
I believe I saw on Twitter earlier today in partnership with the Phillies. So that's pretty cool. But let's get to this lineup that you're talking about, man, because you are correct. They have struggled to drive runs in, and you've seen this from the Phillies in the past before. But it has contributed to their slow start along with the bad pitching. When you look at, 1 run last night, 1 run the game before, 3 the game before that, leaving a ton of runners in scoring position over the last 3 games.
That's the biggest problem.
However, I still believe the lineup will figure itself out. They are much too talented, as we know. They only have 1 home run on the year from Alec Boehm on opening day off Jacob deGrom.
Yep.
And not just that, they have not had a game this season with less than 10 base runners. They're getting hits. They're walking.
Yeah.
They're getting guys on base each and every night. They have not been able to come up with, like we said in the beginning, that's excuse me, that timely hit, that momentum shifter to drive in 2 runs in the gap, right? Look for something like that tonight against Herman. So let's dive into this Phillies lineup. Leading off at shortstop, you have Trey Turner. DHing in the 2-hole, you have Kyle Schwarber. Batting third tonight at third base, Alec Boehm. Cleaning up back at first base, Derek Hall. In right field, batting fifth, Nick Castellanos. Batting sixth at second base, Bryson Stott. Out in left field, batting seventh, you have Jake Cave back in the lineup. Batting eighth in center field, Brandon Marsh. And catching, batting ninth, Garrett Stubbs gets the start with a planned rest day for JT Realmuto, man. Any questions or anything that pops out at you within this starting lineup from Rob Thompson?
How do we feel about Boehm in the 3-hole? Obviously no JT, so he moves
well
up.
Deserved.
He's been playing out of his mind to start the
Yeah.
season. I think he's tied with Trey Turner, but he has a better batting average than Trey right now just because Trey has more at bats. But yeah, I'm interested to see what that looks like in the 3-hole there with him moved up in the lineup. What are your thoughts there?
I think it was well deserved, specifically like you mentioned, without JT, who has been batting third all year. However, I think it's a smart move regardless to kind of tinker this lineup a little bit. I mentioned earlier at Parcero that Topper needs to figure out this lineup ASAP. Good teams, Scotty, aren't moving and fluctuating their starting lineup every single night. It doesn't happen. You have defined roles within this lineup. And like basically how you see Trey and Schwarber in the 1-2 spot every night, right? That's because that's where they belong. He needs to figure out the rest, right? You have Stott batting 8th. You have Stott batting 6th. You have Bohm batting 3rd. You have Bohm batting 7th. He needs to start to figure this out. Alec Bohm in a 3-hole tonight with the way he's hitting, with his approach. He is calm, cool, and collected through all of the ugly negative start so far for this Phillies uniform for this Phillies season. He has been unreal to start so far. He did it again last night with a 3-hit game. I love the addition or to slide Bomer up into the 3-hole. Outside of that, I mean, business as usual, right? You have Hall cleaning up, which to me, that's another thing I brought up to Parcero. Hall and Castellanos 4-5. Obviously, they both played last night, but he had a switch last night versus the lefty. I said to Parcero as well, like, if this is going to be your lineup when Hall and Castellanos are in, you need to figure out who's cleaning up and who's batting fifth. You can't switch them back and forth. They need to know where they're going to be. And then Garrett Stubbs, man. I mean, again, it's a scheduled day off. It's a scheduled day off for JT. We know he caught and played in the World Baseball Classic. Short off season. Said after game 1 how tired he was from the new rules and adjusting to the pitch clock. I get it. It just sucks. Like game 5 of the young season when you're 0-4, starving for a win, you're giving him a rest day. But I guess you would rather have him sit against Herman and have Stubbs hit against Herman than try it against Cole tomorrow.
Yeah, Garrett Cole. And like wouldn't it be so Philly to get the win the first game that JT is out? It would just be so
this
Philly
is the game for them, right? This is the bullpen, Matt Strahm start, backup catcher, Jake Cave in the lineup. This would be the game where they crack into the win column first. It would be very Phillies like to do so. But with that said, man, let's get into our best bets, player of the game, and our predictions before we slide on over to the Sixers portion of the show. Scotty, if you had to give me one guy who is going to contribute the most towards a Phillies win tonight, who is it gonna be?
So there's a couple different directions that I wanted to go here. I thought about going with Schwartz just because we've touched on how important he is, and it would be great to get him going. But I actually went with Alec Bohm in this one, just because he's been so hot. He's been so consistent. He's moved up in the 3 holes, so he should get some extra at bats tonight. I'm looking for him to just keep it going, keep giving us that consistency, right? And that's why I went with him. 7 for 15 on the season so far. He's the only one with the home run, as you mentioned, 3 RBIs. So I'm looking for Bohm to keep it going here tonight and continue to be that consistent spark for the Phillies. With that being said, I am going to go with a predicted loss. This is the first time I picked against the Phillies all season, so I'm hoping to use a little bit of reverse psychology here tonight, and get some runs drove in, get a W for Philadelphia tonight with some reverse psychology. I have the Phillies losing this one 6-3. It would be more of a tough loss, right? But nonetheless, I'm just trying to spark something here, man.
Yeah. So player of the game wise, I'm with you. I have Alec Bohm as well over at third base, batting third tonight. I think the promotion, the little nod from top of here, like, obviously with JT out there, we're going to switch something around, but he has been your best hitter. He's been your most consistent hitter. He's hit for more power and extra base hits than anybody. It's time for Alec Bohm to take that step. And, if he has a game tonight and a Phillies win, it could be a consistent spot for him in the lineup, even when JT Realmuto is there as well. Alec Bohm is my player of the game. I think you get another multi-hit night from him. He's just got to stay calm, cool, and collected, man. I have predicted and also wagered on a Phillies win all 4 games of the season so far. I am 0-4. The bank account hurts. I am not wagering on them tonight, but I am picking them to win. And here is why. One, it's going to come at some point. It's got to come at some point.
That's fair.
And I got to be honest with you, little teaser for tomorrow's pregame for that 1:00 game. I don't know if they're getting to Garrett Cole in Yankee Stadium. And to me, this feels like a 1-5 ball club right now, coming back to Citizens Bank Park versus the Reds. If I had to pick one of the two for them to get that win, it is tonight. So I'm going to go with a Phillies win tonight. I think Strahm gets you into the 5th. I think he gets you through 4, maybe a 3rd, right? And then Topper has to navigate the bullpen, right? Like you cannot have Gregory Soto throw in the 5th inning. He's a back end of the bullpen kind of guy, right? You cannot, obviously, thank goodness they optioned Ian Marte back down to AAA to Lehigh Valley. After
I texted you last night, right? And I asked you, I was like, okay, so this is where the Yankees are going to blow the game open, right?
Yeah.
And sure enough, right after they literally blew it open.
So. Good thing though that at least they have a pulse of this team in city that.
He said, "Hell no, we're not doing this."
They're going to keep around and grow up here when the Phillies are trying to win games. But I got a Phillies win. I got Alec Boehm as my player of the game. They got to get one. And hey, man, I know I said I'm probably leaning a loss tomorrow with Nola versus Cole. But if you can get a win tonight, whether it be an 8th or 9th inning big hit comeback win, or it could be a dominating win where the pitching staff and bullpen shows up, any swing of momentum. That's anybody's ball game tomorrow afternoon. So let's take it one at a time, get a win tonight, and let's look at our best bets here for the Philadelphia Phillies versus New York Yankees. First pitch in about 35 minutes. At the top, you can see Matt Strahm strikeouts. I know this seems kind of off, but the Yankees do strike out a lot. They hit for a lot of runs, they hit for a lot of power, but they swing and miss a lot as well.
The commentator had Walker for 7. He only had 5, but I remember the commentator laid out 7 on the broadcast.
Absolutely, man. So Strahm over 3.5 Ks. It's minus 150. So I think the line is a little telling here. Obviously, you got to eat some juice. If his over under 3.5 was plus 120, I would say something's off here. He's not going to get enough work. Something's going to go wrong, but I'll take the juice here. I'll eat the juice with Matt Strahm strikeouts. Next, something that has crushed me in 2 of the games, but I agree with Scotty. I feel like the bats get it going versus Herman tonight. Phillies team total over 3.5 runs at minus 120 on DraftKings. Win or lose, I think they hit this mark. And then at the bottom of your screen, with all his base running flaws and his error in center field to start the year, Brandon Marsh has been a pleasant surprise in the batter's box so far. Him over half a base, so 1+ hit for Brandon Marsh tonight is minus 135. I think that's crazy. I think it's a little disrespectful, to be honest with you. He's a lefty going against a righty in Herman again. He was able to hit off Cortez and other lefties in the Yankees bullpen last night. Brandon Marsh for 1+ hit at minus 135. As you can see, the season record, we're still under 500, but we had a 2-1 profitable night last night to get us back close to 5. We're fighting to get back to 500, just like the Phillies are going to be, man. So let's take this trip together. Those are your Phillies best bets tonight, game 5 versus the New York Yankees. Scotty, with that said, let's switch gears on over back to South Philadelphia as the Sixers take on the Boston Celtics. Game 4 of this matchup on the season. Celtics have won all 3. These games have progressively gotten closer and tighter and more competitive as the season has gone on, from, opening night when they bounced us out of TD Garden in Boston to the last game where it took a Jason Tatum last-second 3 to end it, right? And let me not forget Joel Embiid with a 3/4 heave that went in but did not count, right? That's how close this ball game was.
I forgot about that, man.
Let me bring back some positivity to you. But how are you feeling as we get into this game, man?
I'm kind of in between on this Sixers team right now. I think the other night you have that game against Milwaukee. And I feel like I've been saying this a lot lately, and I don't want to be an apologist for the Sixers because I feel like I'm just throwing that game out, man. Like it was the Milwaukee Bucks at home. They come out, they can't miss a shot to start the game. They're coming off a 41-point loss at home to the Boston Celtics, another team that's right there in the mix in the Eastern Conference. So it just kind of felt like Milwaukee had to win that game, even as the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. They needed to win that game for their own confidence. So for me, I didn't take that loss on the chin. I didn't take it too harshly.
Let me back you up here. Let me back you up here because reverse it and think of it from a Sixers perspective. If the Sixers were in Milwaukee's shoes and 2 nights prior, they got beat at home by the Celtics by 40, we would be looking at that Milwaukee game following up as like a must-win kind of game.
Exactly. A statement win.
That's what the Bucks had to do, and that's what they
what
did,
they did.
right?
Yeah. And I think there was a few things in that game. Well, obviously Doc Rivers, where, with the Embiid with the 4 fouls, you probably
Mhm.
should bring him back in there. But my whole argument against that was the fact that maybe the Bucks don't bring in Giannis if you keep Embiid out. You know what I mean? So now you're putting Embiid at risk without Giannis at risk,
Right,
and
right.
you wouldn't want to do that anyways. I think there's just kind of no way around that when the other coach is willing to take that risk. But I'm kind of throwing that game out, and that's why I say I'm in between here, because while I'm throwing that game out, the Sixers haven't beat the Celtics this season. And like you said in that last game, everything pointed to in that game the Sixers winning that game, right? You were able to hold Jason Tatum. You were able to contain him,
Right.
but he still hits the game winner against you. The game before that, you have Jaylen Brown go down in that game. I think there was like no Al Horford.
They
There
were
was a
missing
bunch of
Marcus
guys
Smart.
missing.
Yeah, they were missing
No
like 4
Marcus
starters.
Smart in that second game. You still lose that game because the Celtics just shoot a ton of 3-pointers against you. So regardless of the output this season, we've had games where Harden scored 35 in that first matchup of the season. You've had games where Embiid's up over 30 points. He averages 31 points per game in the 3 games they played this year. So Embiid and Harden have done their thing, and the Sixers still haven't been able to win. But you are back home, and you do have another chance right here on your plate tonight. So while I feel, not as confident as I should be at home going against a team that you could potentially see in the playoffs, at the same time, it's just that it's a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference. It's the biggest competition. And the Sixers have a ripe opportunity tonight to make a statement.
I'm glad you brought up the Embiid and Harden point. For this reason, the number one thing I'm looking at tonight, as you brought up as well, is this game is big for confidence tonight with 4 to go before the playoffs, and this matchup is almost a guaranteed, as knock on wood, that both teams get through the first round, which they're expected to be another second round matchup that we've seen quite a lot over the last couple of seasons. It's a confidence thing, not just for the fans, but for the team and individuals as well. Like you mentioned the fact that Embiid and Harden have had success against the Bostons and the Milwaukees of the world this year, but other guys have struggled. Tyrese Maxey in that loss versus Boston at the buzzer, Tyrese Maxey was very poor that night. George Niang has struggled to be a matchup nightmare against this team. Paul Reed struggled in that last Boston matchup, and he's kind of your solidified backup 5 right now, right? So you are looking for these guys. They need that confidence to know, like, hey, if we match up with these guys and we have to play games 1 and 2 in Boston, I know I can compete with them. I know I can contribute against them. So I'm looking at that tonight, man. I'm looking at a guy like a Tyrese Maxey. What did Tobias finish with in Milwaukee, man?
Let me see.
Maybe.
Get it pulled up real quick. Tobias Harris had 6 points, man. And
6.
Yeah, so maybe we can't throw that game out. You know what I mean? Stuff like that makes you not want to throw
happen.
Out.
It just
can't happen.
Man. So and it's funny, you know what? Like he's a good dude, man, and it is not his fault that he got the contract he got, right? But like you listen to the guys I just pointed out. Paul Reed, George Niang, Tyrese. I didn't even mention the max contract player, the 4th option.
That's where we're at
he's
now,
just
right?
He's just an afterthought in these big time moments. That needs to stop if they want to have a run in the postseason.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. That just can't happen. It's become an afterthought to the point where I'm going back and looking at that Milwaukee game and I see Tobias Harris with 6 points and I don't even think about it because it's just something that happens with Tobias Harris. Like it just can't happen, man. And it's similar with this Boston team. Now on the season, Tobias is averaging like 13 points against Boston, but we need to see it consistently. And I think that is something to point out here that Chile pointed out in the comments. It's not just, that you lost to Milwaukee. So just going back to that, and it comes into this game because the same as Milwaukee needed to go out and prove their stance on their home court against us on, what was that, Sunday night? Yeah. We need to come out and do that tonight against Boston. And I think this is it's not ever a must-win game. I always have a hard time saying that, but it is a must-win game. You're at home against the Boston Celtics for the second time this year, the 4th game against the Celtics, and you haven't won one yet. Game. You need to win this game, and I think that comes from consistent effort and defense, man. Why in this game, Dylan? Why do I have to text you in the second half in this game against Milwaukee? we're not running the pick and roll with Harden and Embiid. We're just not. We're just not running it. And I get it because Harden, he was in the first half, he was pissing me the hell off with the behind the back pass.
Yeah.
Once it gets stolen by Drew Holiday once when you go behind your back like that with no looking,
right?
Don't do it again.
Right.
Let's stop doing it. That was for a guy with such a high IQ, that just boggles my brain. But why go away from it? You correct the problem, which was the behind the back no look passes. You don't need to do that anymore. It doesn't mean that you have to stop completely doing the pick and roll. That is where all of your offensive success comes from. It gets open shots for Embiid. It gets open shots for everybody around Harden. Like stuff like that.
The
like
highest
Chile
rated
the
offensive duo in the league this year.
Yeah.
Let's just not run it against the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, right?
The lack of consistency, Dylan. Like, because I'm looking at Niang, right? He came out and he lit the Bucks up in that game 3 matchup, right, of the season against the Bucks. In this game, he's 0 for 2 with 0 points. Just no consistency. DeAnthony Melton, where's he at? 1 for 5. 1 for 5 in this game, 3 points. No consistency. That's the problem, and that goes from all the way up at Tobias Harris all the way down through this bench unit, and it just can't happen in the playoffs, man. That is the biggest worry.
Yeah, man, let's get into keys to victory tonight, because I think you bring up a very good point when you mention putting your stamp against one of these teams. And granted, I wish the Bucks were the 2 seed, because I like how the Sixers match up, and they've had success against Milwaukee this year. I believe we split with Milwaukee right after that last game. We were 2-2 with them on the season after winning the previous 2 or whatever. So you've had success against them. However, you haven't with Boston. And to me, we like to consider this a 3-team race in the Eastern Conference with the Bucks, the Celtics, and the Sixers. You got to prove at some point you can belong. And I think you proved that you can belong in the last game with how tight it was.
Yeah.
But you still were unable to come away with a win. Can you do that tonight and not get swept is important. Now, how can they do that, Scotty? I loved your final point in that Bucks game, because that is my number 1 key tonight. Let Embiid and James Harden set everything up for the others tonight. Go to that 2-man game and run it into the ground early and see how it's working, and see if you can make Boston adjust to that defensively. And if you can do that successfully and either build a lead upon it or make Boston change what they want to do, change their game plan, then that can get Tyrese Maxey. Then that can get the other shooters involved around the perimeter against the very good Boston defense. Do not come out. Dude, I'm sorry. I understand trying to get guys in rhythm. There's nothing I hate more, especially in a game versus a Bucks team or a Celtics team or whatever, where Embiid or Harden are not the focal points to start the game. That should never be I love Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey should not take the first 3 shots of the game. Tobias Harris should not be chucking threes up to start the game.
Unless they're wide open.
Unless it's a transition screen, whatever the case is, whatever. Yeah. It should start and run through those 2.
Agreed.
Because it has all year long, and it's the reason you're a 51-win team.
Agreed. And to your point, man, you can even look back to the game against Toronto where the Sixers are up by 20 points and they completely go away from involving Embiid and running the offense through Embiid.
Yep.
I don't know what makes you do it. I get he was getting triple teamed in that game. You have to give him the ball to get triple teamed to draw the defenders so you can get the ball to others. That's just what has to happen, right? Like
the GM has come out and said he doesn't understand why they weren't doing it more. Daryl Morey has spoken on it on a podcast before this season.
Exactly. And honestly, man, I think it's the problem when you get down the stretch. It's like the Sixers don't know what to do. And I think that's another point to this game against Boston, because you saw it in that last matchup, the game 3 of the season specifically, where Tatum hits that game winner. The late game sets. They look confused. They're so terrible. And all you need to do is run a pick and roll with Joel Embiid and James Harden and make the defense make a choice. Once they make their choice, now you can make your choice, right?
Yeah.
It's all, I mean, this is basketball 101. And it's like at the end of games, they forget how to play. It's like
they get very timid, right? And it's like, who's going to step up in this moment? Scotty, I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah.
They do it defensively too. Why do Anthony Melton took a risk and was out of position against Jason Tatum and was coming from behind on that play where he hits the 3. Go back to the Nets game in Brooklyn when Spencer Dinwiddie chuck the three from the logo or right in front of the logo, hit it, but he didn't get it off in time. That would have sent the game to overtime. Nobody covered him. Nobody guarded Spencer Dinwiddie. It's like they don't know what to do and they don't want to make this mistake.
Right.
I don't get it at times, man.
You just got to play basketball, man. But looking at my keys to victory here tonight, Dylan, I think you're spot on with running the offense through Harden and Embiid. I mean, it's just common sense. It's sad we have to say this stuff sometimes. And the other thing that I'm looking at here, Dylan, I'm looking at Boston being second in 3-point makes, second in 3-point attempts. They shoot a lot of threes, they get a lot up, and they get a lot down. They make a lot of threes. So you have to not only defend the 3-point line, you once again have to stay competitive from the 3-point line as well. That means you have to put up threes yourself. You have to make threes tonight. You look at the last two matchups between these two teams. Boston has had 35 3-point makes compared to Philadelphia's 19. I mean, that's enough to keep a team without Jaylen Brown in the lineup, without Al Horford in the lineup, in the game. That's enough to keep a struggling Jason Tatum, who's not playing his best in that third matchup, and allow them to stay in the game. It's the 3-point shooting, man. And just to make that even more clear, you look at the game one, the reason I pinpointed the last two meetings is because game one, the 3-point disparity wasn't that bad. The Sixers actually made more threes than the Celtics in that game. It's just that Jason Tatum went off. He had 35 points, 12 rebounds, and 4 assists in that first matchup. So one of two things have to happen, if not both tonight, if you want to win. You have to stay competitive from the 3-point line, defend the 3-point line well, but you also have to contain Jason Tatum, which is my second key to victory, because once you contain him, now everything shifts. It's just like containing Embiid, right? Everything shifts, responsibility shifts down to the next guy, and we have to see if they're made of. Now, the big thing tonight, Jaylen Brown was questionable the last time I was looking. He has some lower back soreness, so that could change the outlook of the game, but it also makes the game even more important that you win if they're down Jaylen Brown and possibly Al Horford and Robert Williams. Yeah, some of the guys that are questionable tonight. So just looking at it from that standpoint, my final key to victory here, aside from containing Jason Tatum, controlling the 3-point line, get Tyrese Maxey going against Boston. You talked about it a little bit earlier, his struggles. I talked about it on Twitter earlier. 11.7 points per game against Boston in 3 matches. Like, that can't happen. Like, that can't happen from the guy who is supposed to be your third scorer and a guy who has fulfilled that role in majority of this season. This is a guy that's averaging over 20 points this season, getting strapped down to 11 points, 38% from the field, 20% from the 3-point line. This is a guy in his last 10 games that's shooting over 50% from the 3-point line. So I don't know if it's a mental. Yeah, exactly. You read my mind. I don't know if it's a mental thing or if it's just Boston guarding Maxey. I don't believe that. If that's the case, then he wouldn't play so well against Milwaukee, right? Milwaukee's one of the best defensive teams in the NBA. So it's not that he can't play Miami against good teams, right? Yeah, Miami's another great example there. So it's not just that it's Boston and pressure. It's all in his head, and you need to get out of that cycle tonight before we get to the playoffs. That's a big thing for me as well.
It's funny, man. We're on the same page with this one. Specifically, my second key here is make them a 2-point scoring team. You mentioned the 3-point numbers, but I loved your point on expanding about staying competitive there, right? Because regardless if Boston shoots a high percentage from 3, they're still going to make a lot because they're going to shoot a ton of them. So they might shoot only 32% from the 3-point line, but hell, they might still hit 15 or 16 of them.
Exactly.
Right. So you have to stay competitive from that standpoint and run them off the line, make them a 2-point scoring team tonight. That's huge. And you are 100% correct. Think about that, man. You limited Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, more so Jason Tatum than anybody in that last matchup.
I think he had 18
points. Still wasn't enough because of what they were able to do. Al Horford hit 5 threes in the second half, right?
That can't happen.
So cannot happen. My last thing is just a combination of the basics tonight, man. This has to be as crisp a performance. So what do I mean by that?
I like that.
Protect the ball, protect the glass and limit second chance opportunities. Boston's very good on defense. So if you're struggling offensively, get your ass back and get set up on defense.
Yep.
Know your rotations. Know where you're supposed to and expected to be on both sides of the floor. You have to be crisp tonight if you want to beat this team and show me that you're in playoff ready basketball versus a 2 seed.
Yeah. Because I think that's a great point, Dylan, because I think that speaks to what Chile was saying earlier in the comments here about a consistent effort and look. And that's when we're talking about approaching the playoffs, approaching the postseason. While I said, maybe we should throw that game out against Milwaukee, if we beat Milwaukee in the first 2 matchups in a series, do we just give them game 3? You can't really have that mindset that I was speaking on earlier. And I honestly take it back. You can't just throw that game out because
I get your point though. It's almost like a scheduled loss at that point.
It was like a scheduled loss, but once you get to the playoffs, you need to eliminate
Milwaukee 3 out of 4 times this season at the start of the season. No. Did you expect them to beat after they got mopped up on their home floor against Boston?
Right.
Probably not. So I do get your point, but yes, there were too many negatives to just
the turnovers
didn't matter, rotation. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It would be one thing if the Sixers shot 60%, but Milwaukee shot 65%.
It wasn't just Milwaukee playing really well. The Sixers also lacked focus in a sense. They were turning the ball, the James Harden stuff, as I mentioned earlier with Drew Holiday. You don't. My point with that James Harden thing, because he's a guy with such high basketball IQ.
Yeah.
Why even do that against Drew Holiday? Why not make sure that your passes get in there every time?
When Drew plucks it the first time, what makes you think to continue to try to do it?
What makes you think to do it? And
it's going to work the next time?
You can see that players are starting to come around to that. They're starting to poke around and take more risks when that pass is coming around. So he just needs to be aware of that, which I'm sure I would hope that they address in film and study. I hope they do these things.
You know what the definition is? You know what the definition of insanity is? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. You cannot continue
my hair out when I watch
to go behind the back, no look, in a tight lane with a defense like Milwaukee with long arms.
Making a comeback.
For not just the fact that Drew Holiday is 6'5", 6'6", one of the best defensive guards in the league hanging around. You also have long limbs and long bodies like Brook Lopez and Giannis and Bobby Portis hanging around too. It's just not the time for that mistake.
Those are such momentum killers.
Oh, absolutely.
When you've driven the lead for Milwaukee down to 9 or 8, and then James Harden does a behind the back no look, and it gets plucked off, and Giannis is down at the other end slamming it.
It's a momentum killer. Well, 110%, man. But before we get to our best bets and predictions, let's get to our stars of the game. I don't know if you're gonna have the same as me. I feel like you might with what you just said, but my star of the game is Tyrese Maxey.
I love it.
I think. Like I said in the beginning, to start off the Sixers portion, it is such a confidence building type of performance tonight. It needs to be. You mentioned under 12 points per game versus this opponent when he's averaging over 20 on the season. Under 30% shooting from 3, just above 30% shooting from the floor as a total. Inexcusable. Cannot happen. I need to see a big time Tyrese Maxey performance. Big time. I do not mean 24, 25 points, 5 threes. No.
Yeah.
I mean efficient shooting.
Yeah.
3 of 6 from the 3-point line, 3 of 7 from the 3-point line, timely buckets, using that speed with the second unit, whatever it is. But I need to see him look confident and effective, efficient against this Boston Celtics team. However, that should feed from Joel Embiid and James Harden starting the game.
Yeah, I like that last point there because I was teetering between James Harden and Tyrese Maxey. And I ultimately went with Tyrese Maxey as well because I just think with this matchup, you hinted at the numbers already, 11.7 points per game. That's just so much disparity from what he gives you regularly that he just has to be the difference maker between them losing all 3 of these matchups versus not. You know what I mean? Versus winning them. So it has to be Maxey tonight. Like you said, he feeds off James Harden. Now, James Harden has played really well against Boston this season. I already mentioned the 35-point game he had at the beginning, but he's played consistently against them throughout the 3 matchups. And so I think Harden should be able to get it going, and that's why I was teetering between both of them. But whenever Harden's rolling along, like obviously Embiid, he's been rolling most of this season. He's playing at an MVP level. Whenever Harden is rolling, this offense is unguardable in reality. When he's shooting the ball efficiently and he's able to knock down threes, it's borderline unguardable when they have to give respect to Harden and his scoring ability. But tonight, I think against Boston, it's just so clear that it's Tyrese Maxey. I'm in agreement with you there. It's not necessarily, like you said, it's not the 20 plus points. It's not, 6 assists, 10 assists for Max. It's more about the confidence and being assertive in the game. Like we saw the other night. I mean, I was a little confused by taking all the threes, but if they're there, you do have to be able to take it, right? And I kind of got over it. I'm like, this is a guy that can hit 4 or 5 threes in a game, so he should get the volume. There's just a point in one of these later games where I was just like, all right, he's shot like 7 or 8 threes now. And
it gets frustrating. It gets frustrating, when it's not showing on the scoreboard.
Yeah.
When they're losing. And it's because it almost feels like it's taking away from the more dominance of the game with being Joel, right? So when Maxey has 7 threes, it doesn't translate to a victory for some reason the way that a dominant Embiid performance does. I don't know why. I don't know what else goes wrong in those specific games because, his 7 threes are going to be worth more than Joel's points in the paint. Well, for whatever reason.
I think usually when that happens, Dylan, it's usually because Joel is either not engaged, right? So he's not playing at his hardest to go out and be the leading scorer that night. Or the other team is just locking in on Joel and not allowing him to get any open looks. So usually when Maxey's getting that higher volume, it's a bad sign, right? It means your best player is not able to do what he needs to do. But I'm with you, man. I think Maxey is the guy. And, we could talk about Tobias Harris, but I think we're beyond that right now. Like, we can't ask for Tobias to come out.
Absolutely. Because you know why? I'm not expecting it.
Exactly.
I have no expectations for him to have a big game tonight. Therefore, he will not be.
We're beyond the contract at this point, guys. Like, we are 4 years into this? Like, we got 1 year left on the we're beyond the contract. We have to accept him for what he is. And mind you, I've been one of the Tobias apologists over the last few years.
I'll tell you what, it's bullshit though, because not the contract. It's bullshit because he is not a 6 point per game scorer.
He's not even. Bro, like not even
16 plus point per game score. And I understand when you are playing next to and in between James Harden and Joel Embiid and a young Tyrese Maxey who gets all that volume, your numbers are going to be down. Your shot attempts are going to be down. There has to be a common ground between Tobias without Harden and Embiid versus with them. It cannot be 22 points without them on the floor in a starting role versus 6 against the Bucks with them on the floor next to you. Well, if Tobias Harris can average 13 points per game in the postseason, I'll take it. 14 points per game in the postseason, I'll take it.
Literally.
The problem is he might average freaking 9.
Yeah, and that just can't. We can say it can't happen, Tobias. Like, it just can't, man. Like, otherwise you're going to deal with the pushback of the fan base. And obviously we've seen how he deals with
what do you expect when you score 6 points? 6 against a team where we need the others to step up. He is an other, right? Forget the contract, like you said. He is not a main guy. He's your fourth option.
That's a D-melt type of thing that happened last game, right? 6 points, 6 shots, and 25 plus.
Except
minutes.
Tobias should be held on a way higher level.
Yeah, exactly.
Than Anthony Melton.
Exactly. You're spot on. So, I think that's a good point to kind of maybe head towards the prediction tonight. But
I'm really not trying to rip into the guy. I'm not, man.
It's just when you look back,
I think he's a hell of a leader on this team. He's got good energy. I just know what he can be.
Yeah.
And I feel like I do not see it nearly enough. 2 years ago, we were banging the drum for this dude to be in the All-Star game, and he got snubbed for Julius Randle. He averaged that year? 18?
He got up 19? To 20. He got up to the 20s, like the low 20s that year, man.
Right. I don't need 20.
We don't need 20. 14. 13, 14 points, man. It's a big difference in the grand scheme when you look at it, and that's taking a little bit off of his chest given the contract. So
Let's get into these predictions and best bets. Guys,
Okay.
as you can see, I think prediction-wise, if you look at best bet number one, we have Sixers money line at -145. I think it is not a must-win in terms of, like, if they lose the game, they're done in the postseason. You never know. But in terms of confidence, it's a very important game for them to come out and show up. No Robert Williams at the center position for the Boston Celtics tonight. Potentially no Jaylen Brown. He is a game-time decision. The last time I saw on ESPN.com, he's doubtful even. So,
and if you're the Celtics, would you play him? You know what I mean?
Right. You have 3 games on Philly. I don't know if you're fearing losing the 3 seed or the 2 seed. Right. So we have Sixers money line. I think it's important for them to get the win tonight. I think they know that back at home. They're 2-3 in their last 5 games. Sixers get back on the right track tonight against Boston. Number 2, James Harden. Over 2.5 threes tonight. You have to figure he gets the volume with the success that he's had against the Boston Celtics, as Scotty pointed out throughout the show. Not just that, when you implement the 2-man game with him and Embiid early, guess what that pick and roll can do? Get a switch, or get 2 guys drawn to Embiid, and he can step back, knock down threes. Harden for 3 threes. And lastly, I am going to bang the drum for this. Tyrese Maxey. I know I said it doesn't need to be a 20-point night for him to build confidence, but if he's confident, you're almost likely to get his season average, which is around this. Over 20.5 points at -110 on DraftKings for Tyrese Maxey tonight.
Yeah, I like all of these, man. We're looking at the Sixers money line. Like we've talked about the entire show, you have to get one, especially at home. You can't lose both at home when you're fully healthy, and you're talking about a Celtics squad that won't have their full rotation tonight. Harden threes, I mean, plus money, that I'm going to eat that up tonight because, like you said, he's going to get the attempts. Usually against the tougher teams, too, he is a little bit more assertive offensively as well, and I would imagine he keeps that up against Boston. And then, like you said, Maxey, if he plays like himself tonight, he'll fall into 21 points. He's been averaging, 24 points in his last 10, 24 points per game, 54% from the field, 52% or 51%, from the 3-point line. No reason he shouldn't get up over 20 points tonight because the Sixers are going to need them, right? So, I love all of these tonight. And yes, we are going with the Sixers W.
Yeah, man, I think that they get the win tonight. I think that, like I said, they know that. I think the crowd at the Wells Fargo Center tonight knows that and feels that. Yeah. I think it's the perfect cap, the perfect send-off to this great season that they've had, because if you win tonight, the final 3 games become nothing, right?
Yeah,
so
agreed.
You're looking at this one tonight to put your stamp on the game, on the season.
And I think it's from like a standpoint of when me as a Sixers fan, me as a person who believes that the Sixers legitimately have a chance at winning the NBA championship, making it out of the second round, getting to the Eastern Conference and the NBA Finals. They have to be able to turn it on at some point and decide we're not going to lose this game.
Yep.
Right? That's what they have to do tonight.
They're
it's just
too talented.
Good postseason. They're too talented for that to not be the case. So if they can't put that type of hard hat on, if they can't put that focus on the table tonight against a team that is dog walked them, they haven't beat them that bad all season, but they're 3-0 against you this season. Put that hard hat on and go to work tonight and know that you can't come out of here with the loss, not at home.
Yeah, man, I'm totally with you guys. But with that said, Phillies first pitch in under 5 minutes. So let's get on out of here and get set in for another doubleheader tonight in the Philadelphia sports landscape. For myself, you can find me on Twitter at DylanJD98. My co-host Scotty, you can find him as well at Scotty Drown. And for all of our content over at DSM Media, check us out on Twitter at DSM_media. Hit that follow button. The link tree in our bio will take you to every platform we're available on to catch each and every one of these DSM pregame lives or any of our content. Make sure you check us out on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications, all that good stuff. Like this video. We greatly appreciate it. Have a great rest of your night. Go Phils and go Sixers.
Go Sixers, go Phils.
And Philadelphia has it.